Imagine this. You wake up, check your phone, and within seconds you're gone. Not physically, but psychically. Your thoughts are no longer your own. You're scrolling, liking, reacting, performing. A silent script runs your day, written by others, rehearsed by billions. You dress how you're told is acceptable. You chase things you've been told are meaningful. You feel shame for desires you didn't choose to suppress, and pride for achievements you didn't choose to value. And yet, you feel hollow. There's a strange emptiness gnawing at the edge of your awareness, a kind of spiritual malnutrition, as if something vital was quietly extracted while you weren't looking. You go about your life with the vague sense that something is wrong, but every time you try to name it, the words feel incomplete. It's like trying to remember a dream right after waking up slippery, insubstantial. They told you this was freedom. But why does it feel like a beautifully decorated cage? We live in the age of connection, yet loneliness spreads like a virus. We have more comfort than any generation in history, yet anxiety, depression, and addiction are at an all-time high. We chase self-improvement obsessively, yet we've never felt more inadequate. Isn't it strange? The more society promises fulfillment, the more disoriented you feel. What if the very systems designed to give your life meaning are the same ones eroding your soul? What if the soul isn't lost in some grand crisis, but smothered slowly, silently by everything you've come to accept as normal? You were born wild, curious, sacred, but you were handed a script, told who to be, tamed, and somewhere in that process, something ancient within you started to die. Could it be that society doesn't kill the soul with violence, but with noise, comfort, and distraction? Could it be that the soul doesn't scream, but whispers and we've forgotten how to hear it? The destruction doesn't come with fire and chains. It comes with applause, with conformity, with endless notifications. And if that's true, what else might be silently dying within you? Right now, let's go deeper. The soul rarely dies in a single blow. It erodes bit by bit through unconscious choices and socially sanctioned betrayals of the self. It often begins in childhood, where emotional expression is subtly or explicitly punished. Cry too much and you're weak. Get angry and you're bad. Question too much and you're difficult. So, you adapt. You split. You bury parts of yourself to gain approval, affection, and safety. This is what Carl Jung called the formation of the shadow, the parts of your psyche you've exiled in order to survive in a world that fears your wholeness. From this exile comes fragmentation. You begin to live a double life, the outer persona that the world rewards, and the inner truth you hide even from yourself. But society doesn't just ignore the shadow. It profits from it. Consumerism thrives on your sense of lack. Social media exploits your hunger for validation. Advertising seduces your insecurities, convincing you that your wholeness can be bought. Here lies the quiet horror. Modern culture doesn't want you healed, because a healed person is dangerous. A healed person doesn't consume compulsively. A healed person questions authority. A healed person doesn't seek validation, they embody truth. And so, we are kept numb through dopamine loops, through the cult of productivity, through curated identities and endless comparison. Even spirituality, which should be a path to liberation, is often co-opted into performance. High vibes only becomes a slogan of repression. Shadow work becomes a trend rather than a transformation. We meditate to escape ourselves, not to meet ourselves. This is the soul's disintegration, not in dramatic breakdowns, but in quiet agreements. In every moment, we choose comfort over courage, image over essence, distraction over depth. Fyodor Dostoevsky once wrote, "The mystery of human existence lies not in just staying alive, but in finding something to live for." But how can you find meaning when you've outsourced your values? How can you feel whole when you've amputated half your being? This is not just a psychological dilemma, it's existential. Because when the soul is suppressed for long enough, you don't just feel empty. You begin to forget that something deeper was ever possible. And that is the true danger. But what if disintegration is not the end, but the beginning of awakening? Let's explore what it means to reclaim what has been lost. Reclaiming the soul doesn't begin with grand gestures. It begins with a whisper, the quiet, often painful decision to stop pretending. To stop pretending you're fine. To stop pretending you agree. To stop pretending you don't feel that. Something is deeply wrong, not just in your life, but in the world itself. This is where shadow work begins. Carl Jung didn't speak of the shadow as evil. He described it as everything within us. We have refused to see our anger, lust, grief, wildness, but also our joy, passion, intuition, and power. What you exile becomes unconscious, and what becomes unconscious begins to control you. So, the first act of reclamation is to really look at what you've hidden. You are not born disconnected. Disconnection was taught. Gabor Maté explains that addiction, whether to substances, screens, relationships, or success, is not a disease but a response to pain. Pain that was often never seen, named, or validated. In a culture that shames vulnerability and worships performance, it's no wonder we numb ourselves however we can. Healing begins by asking, what am I running from? Whose approval am I still chasing? What parts of myself have I silenced to fit in? This is not self-help, it's self-confrontation. It is sitting with your sadness without numbing it. It is allowing rage to rise, not to destroy, but to reveal what boundaries were never honored. It is learning to trust your inner voice after a lifetime of being told it was wrong. Philosophers like Nietzsche believed that true freedom is not found in obedience, but in the creation of one's own values. He wrote, "Become who you are, not who you are told to be. Not who you perform to be, but who you already are beneath." The fear and conditioning. This path is not easy. It requires courage, solitude, and deep unlearning. You will lose people. You will lose identities. You may even lose everything that once gave you a false sense of stability. But in that loss, something sacred returns: authenticity, integrity, and aliveness. Reclaiming the soul is a rebellion against the deadening forces of culture. It is choosing meaning over comfort, depth over ease, and truth over belonging. And ironically, when you choose your truth, when you step fully into your being, you discover a new kind of belonging, not one given by society, but one rooted in your relationship with yourself, with others, and with life itself. The soul doesn't need to be created, it needs to be remembered. And the world doesn't just need more comfort. It needs more awake souls. Are you willing to become one of them? Awakening the soul is not a destination, it's a daily challenge. Once you begin to see through the illusions, the noise, and the conditioned patterns, you realize how deeply embedded they are in every part of life. You might feel like an outsider, or even a threat, because modern society is built on the premise of compliance and comfort, not on radical self-honesty or true freedom. The system rewards those who play along, who conform, who consume without questioning. Jean-Paul Sartre warned us about bad faith, the act of lying to ourselves to avoid the anguish of freedom. Most people live in bad faith, adopting roles and narratives that mask their inner turmoil. But living awake means accepting the weight of freedom the responsibility of choice without clear answers. It means embracing uncertainty, paradox, and sometimes loneliness. Aldous Huxley foresaw a world where people would choose distraction over enlightenment, where easy pleasure replaces deep understanding. That world is here. Screens, likes, entertainment, and constant noise drown out the still, small voice of the soul. Yet, this is exactly why awakening matters more than ever. Because the deeper your awareness, the greater your power to resist unconscious conformity. Because the more you own your shadow, the less you are controlled by it. And because when you choose authenticity, you become a beacon for others lost in the fog. But beware, this path can be lonely. You will encounter resistance, both internal and external. The culture may label you as strange, rebellious, or dangerous. Even your closest relationships might fracture. This is the paradox of awakening. To be truly free is to be truly vulnerable, but also to be truly alive. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how," finding that why or personal meaning is the antidote to despair and nihilism. It's the reason you endure the shadow work, the discomfort, the losses. It's what pulls you through the abyss. In a world that often feels cold, meaningless, and mechanical, awakening your soul is the greatest act of rebellion, the greatest gift to yourself, the greatest service to humanity, because only souls who are truly awake can create a future worth living.
Awakening is not just a personal journey. It's a revolution, quiet but unstoppable. Every step you take toward your authentic self shakes the foundations of a world built on illusions. Every time you choose presence over distraction, depth over surface, courage over comfort, you're lighting a spark that others can see, even from afar. This is the invitation to stop sleepwalking through your life, to face the shadows you've hidden, to reclaim the parts of yourself the world tried to erase. It won't be easy, but it will be real. You don't need to fix everything at once. You don't need permission or approval. You only need to start by listening, really listening to that quiet voice inside. Notice when you're acting from fear or habit or the need to please. Allow yourself to feel without judgment, and slowly, courageously choose to be more. As Nietzsche said, become who you are, because when you do, you don't just heal yourself, you heal a bit of the world. In this fragmented, noisy age, awakening your soul is a radical act of love. So ask yourself, what part of you is ready to come home? What truth are you ready to live? The answer is waiting, and so is your freedom.